Hey, it's Lisa here with a solo version today of Road Divinity. So it's election week, and I wanted to share a little perspective from my past on elections. And today I'm calling today's episode Pawpaw, Politics, and Polls. And in this instance, I am not talking about polling places, voting kind of polls. I'm not even talking stripper polls here. I'm talking fishing polls. And for me, they actually all go together. You see, my pawpaw, my grandpa, my dad's dad, was absolutely one of my favorite people on the planet. And he instilled in me a love of fishing. So even when I was a little bitty kid, we would get together and wake up for 4:30 in the morning, get out of the house before the butt crack of dawn. What kid wants to do that? Except fishing with my grandpa made it all okay. And we would get up, and whether we were going trout fishing and standing in the river, in our waders with a power bait on our treble hook, just waiting for the whistle to blow so we could make that first cast, or whether we were going on the other river where we would dig night crawlers really early in the morning to take with us, get in the John boat. My job was to use the paddle to keep the John boat in the perfect fishing spot for him while he was doing his thing. Not the easiest task, right? But I didn't mind because he was the kind of grandpa that would always take my fish off my hook for me, because I didn't mind the night crawlers, but taking the little flippy fish, the perch and the crappie and the other things off my hook, that kind of freaked me out. So he never once complained about taking my fish off my hook for me when we were on that river. Now, one thing, not only did my grandpa inspire kind of a love of being on the water and a love of being on the river and of fishing with him, for me, it was never really about the fishing. It was really always about the chance to hang out with my pawpaw, because he was just an amazing man. But he was also the person that got me interested in politics. He was very, very active and animated about his love of politics. He had fought in World War II, was stationed in New Guinea when he was in the army, had a strong belief and value in our democracy and in our right to vote and our right to have a voice and protecting of our freedoms. And he really lit a fire in me about that when I was a little bitty kid. I remember when I turned 18, being able to go to my courthouse the day I turned 18 and get my voter registration card just so I could take it and show him, because I was so excited that I was going to be able to participate in voting as well. And I knew he'd be proud of that. Now, what I came to find, though, over time, is that my grandpa and Papa and I didn't exactly see eye to eye on politics. He had a very specific way of looking at the world. And I had a very specific way of looking at the world, and those two ways of looking at the world were very, very different. He didn't like to be wrong or to be argued with, and I was a debater, high school and college competitive debater by nature. So this could have gone south really, really fast. But the truth is, with us, what brought us together was always more important than how we disagreed. And I could find he could start these conversations, and I could tell we were getting ready to go into, political debate land where I didn't really want to go, and I knew it was not going to end well. And I would just say, "Hey, Papa, I love you." And he'd look at me and kind of grumble. And I'd say, "Hey, Papa, I love you." And the conversation would shift, because we never allowed that what we disagreed upon or our, political differences to stand in the way of our love. Our love was always more important. We sure weren't going to allow it to pollute an entire day on a river or an opportunity to enjoy fishing together. We remembered what was important. And for us, our relationship was far more important than our differences. Now, does that mean that we didn't get mad at each other sometimes? No, it didn't. In fact, sometimes policies matter, right? I'm not saying that politics don't matter and that your candidate or my candidate or whatever candidate doesn't make a difference in the policies of our nation, and that can have a big effect. I mean, even one of my papa's policies really pissed me off, and it was the only time I can ever really remember being legit pissed at my grandpa. And I was 16, and we'd been trout fishing, and I was probably in that teenage, like, existential crisis phase, and I remember having this thought of, holy crap, what if there's like an end of the world scenario? I had seen Red Dawn too many times at this point, I'll admit it. What if there's some end of the world scenario and I need to know what to do with the fish once I catch them, right? Because I was really good at catching the fish, but like actually knowing cleaning them, I didn't know how to clean them, and I didn't know what to do with them after they were caught. So I asked my papa, I was like, hey, would you teach me how to clean the fish? And he was like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? What do you mean no? We catch the fish, the men clean the fish, the women cook the fish. That's how it is. That was Papa's policy, right? And my little brain is going, well, that's bullshit. I don't even understand this. I was pretty angry with him at the time. But you see, I had a workaround because I had a 12-year-old little brother who was just dying to use a big knife, right? So he taught me right then and there how to clean the fish and, what to do with it afterwards. So I had to work around the policy that I just thought was a bunch of crap, because what do you mean girls can't learn how to do that? That just didn't make any sense to me. So sure, policies matter. And sure, having a decent relationship, or at least a knife, for my brother to use at the time, mattered. Having the tools mattered. Learning the skills mattered. But I also didn't let that pollute the relationship between us, because that's what mattered even more. When I look at our democracy right now, it feels pretty damn polluted. So much of this past election has been divisiveness and pitting people against each other, with what seemed to be much more emphasis on a particular candidate, on either side, than necessarily what was good for democracy or good for our country or good for bringing people together, but more in separating us. And this is true on both sides. And I saw people get so attached to that it's almost like we were polluting the river that we're all swimming in. It reminds me of when I was in grad school. I actually did a project about one of the tributaries that fed a big lake near where I grew up. And what was happening was that this particular tributary used to be a place where they would have like smallmouth bass championship fishing tournaments. Well, the fish went away. And they were like, what the hell is up with the fish, right? And it turns out in the neighboring state, one of the chicken processing plants had been dumping chicken litter, which we all know is chicken shit, right? Dumping chicken shit like directly in the stream that ran for maybe 500 yards in the state before it crossed over the border and ended up, running into our lake. All of that chicken shit ended up causing like algae blooms. Just like huge algae problems within this particular stream area, and it choked out all the fish. And so not only did the fish, they weren't able to populate and habitat there, but when it got really bad, there was a Baptist church up on the hill, and they would have their baptisms in this little stream. And so when people started getting sick from the baptisms in the polluted stream, that's when they realized, we kind of got a problem here. But politics really got in the way of cleaning up the stream, like in a big way. And it ended up being state versus state fights, worries about economic development in the area. And if we actually admit that we have a problem, it might, depress real estate property values, stuff like that. It was just a big freaking mess. We see a lot of that on a lot of different issues. We see a lot of chicken shit being dumped in a lot of places where it shouldn't be dumped. And what people on either side call the chicken shit or call the pollution is actually different things. And it gives us an opportunity to really step back and go, wow, what matters here? Are we concerned about the future of our democracy? If there are challenges and problems with the way our democracy is being run and is expressing itself and our ability to actually have a vote, then damn right, something needs to be cleaned up. If through our democracy we have completely lost our way for actual civil discourse, we need to kind of turn the mirror back on ourselves and see why we're allowing that to happen. I have seen so many people throw the bait, in this case, stink bait, stink bait out in their social media feeds or whatever, just trying, hoping, wishing somebody's going to take the bait so they can set the hook and reel them in and just, start the fight. Because it seems like we've become more engaged and intrigued by the drama than we have by the actual promise of democracy. And if that's true, that's a problem with us. And we need to do some introspection and some soul searching to figure out how we can get beyond that. I wish I had an opportunity to fish with my grandpa again. We lost him in 1998 to a brain tumor, and that's a lot of fishing that we've lost since then. I have absolutely no doubt that he would have a whole hell of a lot to say about this particular presidential election and just this entire election process right now. And I also have no doubt that if it got heated, probably a "hey, Papa, I love you," could bring it back around to what really mattered and not destroying the relationships. I've seen so many relationships destroyed throughout this process. Friendships, families, people who are no longer speaking to each other, Facebook, friends lists that have really gotten thinned over time. And it makes me sad that this level of divisiveness has been allowed to be kind of on the leading edge of what our democracy is supposed to be all about. I don't know what to do about it other than, "Hey, Papa, I love you. Hey, democracy, I love you. I want you to thrive and succeed. And if reform and change is needed, then let's go there." With the value of democracy being what leads that conversation, not with one candidate or another candidate winning and this one election being what leads that conversation. If reform is necessary, then let's reform it. With America being what is driving that train, not any particular candidate. And hey, Americans, sometimes you make it really damn difficult. But I love you too. And there's something I think a lot of us feel, which is just this grief and sadness about seeing this level of animosity, this level of division, this level of just chicken shit slinging and fear and name calling bullshit that's permeated not just our political discourse, but it feels like it's permeating our culture. And that's not okay. It's not okay. We are better than that as a country. We are better than that as a people. Sure, we have our teams and we talk smack or whatever, but this has gone deeper than that this time. And it's polluting the river. It's polluting the river of our democracy. It's going to pollute every fish we pull out of it. It's polluting the whole thing. We have an opportunity to rise above it. And I think that that's one of the things that this particular election cycle has really given us a chance to see is, are we willing to stand for this? Are we willing to allow this to be what drives our country? Or do we want something different? And when I say that, I'm not talking candidates. I'm talking the way we as Americans, as human beings, as people show up. Because we can point fingers and blame political leaders, but the truth is, it's our freaking fault that we're standing for any of this divisiveness and insanity. We have choices to make. We have a voice. We have a vote. Sure. Sometimes it might feel like it's not a whole lot. But we also have an opportunity to lead by example in how we show up. How are you showing up? Are you showing up from a place of divisiveness? Are you doing whatever you can to label the other side as being the evil, horrible, awful permeators of darkness and death or whatever? Is there good on both sides? Absolutely. Is there bad on both sides? Abso-freaking-lutely. Okay. But is that what we're clinging to? Or are we clinging to a future and a vision of something better, a vision of something brighter? Do we even want a future where there's unity? Or are we feeling really good rolling around like a bunch of pigs in shit in this mudslinging contest called democracy, I think? Are we okay with that? Maybe a lot of people are, but I know there are a lot of us that aren't. And I know that there are a lot of us that think that our country deserves a hell of a lot better, deserves more thoughtfulness, deserves more compassion, more unity, regardless of political party, regardless of which candidate we support or not. We can actually have differences and still get along. My grandpa and I did. In the confines of a John boat, or on the side of a river, with our treble hooks and our fishing lines. We agreed that we loved Zebco 33. We agreed that we had certain colors of power bait that were our favorite. We agreed that we preferred night crawlers over minnows every single time. We agreed on these things. Sure, we disagreed on a lot when it came to politics. But that didn't stop us from caring about each other and from being more interested in what brought us together than what could have torn us apart if we allowed it to. Now, granted, that's one relationship, me and my grandpa, But as a nation, can we start looking to each other to see what unites us, to see the things that we actually do care about? Do we care about the future of our country? Do we care about our democracy? Do we care about things like freedom and liberties and opportunities, not just for some, but for all? Do we care about these things? And if so, are we willing to put all the bullshit aside and actually start walking together toward a future that honors that, instead of destroys any hope that that might be possible? These are just some things that have been on my mind. I am incredibly grateful to my grandpa, to my pawpaw, for inspiring me to care about politics. I mean, hell, I went out and got a master's in political management, worked in DC for 12 years and taught political science at the college level. I care about these things. I actually care about the fabric of our democracy. I actually care about the values that drive our country. And it actually breaks my heart to see that breaking down all around us. So we've got choices to make. We have choices to make. We can continue to pollute the stream, or we can clean it up. We can continue to bitch and moan and complain and point fingers at the other person, the other guy, the other whatever, or we can take a hard look inside and see how we're contributing to this mess and what we can do as individuals to turn that tide around. Ultimately, we have an opportunity to use this as a way of practicing, rising above the fray, letting people have their opinions, honoring that they get to have different opinions, not feeling like we have to take the bait every time it's thrown in our direction, not letting the hook be set every time we do. We can spit the hook out at any point and choose not to play that divisive game. We can choose that. But will we? When we become aware of every time that we're adding to the divisiveness, every time we're adding to the polarity, the us versus them, all this crap, and when we lose sight of having our eye on the ball of what's good for America, what's good for democracy, what's good for moving forward as a human race and American people. And I know this sounds really freaking Pollyanna, and how the hell do we do that? And I don't have those answers. But I know that it starts with becoming aware of when we're contributing to the problem and making the choice to not do that. Making the choice to strive for unity, making the choice to strive for something more positive instead of something more negative. I had the opportunity to do that with my pawpaw on every fishing trip. And I wouldn't have changed that for the world, because to this day, some of my very favorite memories of growing up were with him in a John boat, or with him in waders on a riverbank. Very favorite memories. I wouldn't have let those go for the world. and certainly not for disagreeing on politics, and certainly not even for being pissed that he wouldn't teach me how to, clean a fish. We've got a lot of growing to do as a country and as a people, and we especially have a lot of growing to do back together. We've done a lot of growing apart, and it's time to bring it back together. We're all swimming in the same stream. We can either keep crapping in it or we can clean it up. And I think most of us really want to see a brighter future. We want to see people enjoying each other's company again instead of being at such odds all the time. And it's going to be up to us to turn that tide and to start that different kind of a flow. And I hope you're in for it. I hope you're interested in going in that direction. I'm just seeing a message from Holly Long over there. Talking about the lions in the background. Hello in Maine. I wish you hello from Oklahoma. To all of you out there, I know it's an energetically difficult time. I'm going to post a link to a webinar that I did a while back about just energetic tools to kind of navigate these chaotic times. I think that it could just be helpful for a lot of folks right now. So I'll post a link to that replay. It could be useful. Talk when you need to. Get support when you need to. It's wild times. I'm hopeful. I truly am hopeful that things are going to get better. I think the next 2 or 3 weeks could be a total shitstorm. Or as I like to say, a crap tornado. Because in Oklahoma, we think about those things. But it could get crazy over the next 2 weeks. There will be efforts to divide us even more than we already are. Some people, throw out words like civil war and, riots and whatever. We don't have to let it go there. And we don't have to get caught up in it if it does. Even if that bait's thrown, we don't have to take the bait. We don't have to be drawn into that divisive pond. But we got to choose. We got to make the decision for ourselves. So I hope that you will join me in wanting to choose to actually love each other. To honor that we're going to have difference of opinion, and a whole lot of differences between us. And we are all each still worthy of love and of that being the priority. So with that, I wish you a happy rest of the election week. It's like this week is so 2020. This week is just so 2020 in alignment with everything else we've seen in 2020. Things will get better. They may get a little rougher before they get better, but they will get better. Let's stay optimistic. Let's try to keep our energy high and positive. Let's reach out to each other and lean on each other when we need support. And let's try not to add to the divisiveness as much as we can. To stay above the fray, to keep our eye on a more positive, a brighter future, a future where we can come together as an American people instead of being torn apart, a future where our democracy actually thrives instead of being polluted, a future where love gets to actually drive the train instead of fear. That's my wish, and I hope you'll join me in that wish. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Dirt Road Divinity is actually becoming a podcast this weekend. So I'll put the link out where you can actually find it on audio. It should be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the places that you normally get podcasts. But I'll let you know when that's up and available. And in the meantime, take a deep breath and have a good week. See ya.